En italiano, lo hacemos en español.
No, in English, please. In English, please. I mean, I know you sound great in both language, but multiple times. Let's now go to somebody
Spanish.
who.
And you also spoke Spanish.
I speak a little bit of Spanish, so I got some of that too, just a little. Let's now go to somebody who knows the new Pope, Pope Leo XIV. Joining us now is former U.S. Ambassador to the Holy See, Miguel Diaz, a friend, as I said, of the new Pope. Ambassador, tell us a little bit about the man.
Possiamo parlare in italiano, lo hacemos en español.
No, in English, please. In English, please. I mean, I know you sound great in both language, but let's do English.
I am shocked. I mean, I am pleasantly shocked in the sense that, and also there's a lot in the name, right? So I'm by also training not just a diplomat, but a professor of theology, and I have in front of me, you know, the companion to the teachings of justice and peace. He took the name of Leo, which Rerum Novarum, you know, published back in 1891, it's considered like the first of these documents. So that tells us a lot. Just like Francis, the name Francis for Bergoglio tells us a lot about there's a lot in the name. The name of Leo tells us a lot about what this Pope, the message behind that is coming in terms of what he envisions for his papacy, and that is all about social justice at a time that our world is desperately in need of continuation with the legacy of Pope Francis. The fact that he began with the words peace. There are words from the gospel, peace be with you, from Jesus himself, but it's also echoed in every heart today that wants to turn away from polarization and continue down the path of peace building. And so I really, I'm so excited. I had a meal with him last year, along with 3 other professors from Loyola University of Chicago, because of this initiative that we have ongoing with Pope Francis in the youth. And I'm really excited that he will continue to be that kind of person that can be engaged in conversations, that can continue to build upon, what has already begun with respect to Pope Francis. And the fact that he mentioned Pope Francis, thanked him various times. Hey, look, in all those languages, I think he's a great proponent of diversity, equity, and inclusion, certainly within the church and also within our human family. So those are my 3 cents.
About what it means for future inclusion. I mean, Pope Francis famously was inclusive towards same-sex marriage. Do you expect him to be that way? There's also been a lot of talk, a lot of questions about whether women can be elevated in the church. Do you expect anything like that?
Well, and again, these are excellent questions that for many of us who not only teach and are open to these dimensions, but want them to be realized within the church, will continue to both at entrance, we say, within the church, to push and to create the spaces that we can have these kinds of conversations that will create greater inclusion within the church. But I think that given who this person is, the Pope himself, Pope Francis himself had chosen him to be in charge of the dicastery of bishops, important because it chooses the bishops throughout the world. There is a lot of alignment. And my hope is that the spirit of synodality, which is the spirit of listening that Pope Francis began during his pontificate, can continue and evolve and deepen under Pope Leo. So those are very good points when it comes to greater inclusion of gender, equality, women and the voices of women and the gifts of women, as well as greater inclusion with respect to those of us that are part of the LGBTQ plus community. But I have to say that I was texting prior to the elections to some of my friends this picture, and I said, well, if by chance this happens to be the person who's chosen, this would be something to celebrate on. And when on a personal level, and when I saw him emerge and the name declared, I was in tears. Simply because I was hoping he's a moderate voice, but it's a moderate voice that I believe can be engaged in constructive conversations.
You know, I'm
The
curious
rest
about
will be-
the choice of him as an American and whether this is the church making a concerted effort to try to bring America back into the global fold. We have become much more nationalistic, a tendency toward more isolationism in our politics in recent years. He talked about being a bridge, building bridges. Is this potentially, and Chris, I'll bring you into this conversation as well, is this potentially, maybe I'm reading too much into it, the church looking at building a bridge to America?
Well, I think building a bridge part for sure. And one of the things that every conclave that gets talked about at every conclave is a missionary spirit, somebody who can go out there and bring the word of God to the far reaches. This is somebody who's done it, right? He lived in Peru. I think he was a naturalized citizen there. Obviously, he's a polyglot. He's somebody who speaks many languages. We heard how well he spoke some of them there. And I think, you know, we just talked about the fact that he was the head of the dicastery to appoint bishops. This isn't just a powerful position. It's a position where a lot of people get to know you. That's number one. So he formed a lot of relationships, which doesn't hurt when they go into the conclave. The other thing I would say is that from my own experience in spending time in Rome, not all of the cardinals are as linguistically gifted as the new pope.
It was amazing.
So the idea that he can talk to so many different cardinals, many of them do, of course, speak Italian, and he speaks beautiful Italian, beautiful Spanish, also 3 other languages, and you heard that he can read Latin. He can also read German. There is that. I think this is that. I think it is the missionary spirit of the church. I don't know how many of them went into the conclave saying, let's bring the American church back into the fold in a more dynamic way.
Well,
I don't know that he's seen that way.
If it's I don't know, maybe it's just America in general. And the reason I ask this is NBC News has confirmed his Twitter account and his Facebook account, and they're political. He's wading into issues that are big here in the United States. He's waded into the issue on climate change, advocated that it is real. He's waded into the issue on immigration. He called child separation. He's either tweeted directly on this or retweeted others who have expressed these sentiments, just talking about how awful child separation was, denouncing racism, supporting dreamers. I mean, just recently.
Where else did you hear that, Pope Francis?
I know, but recently talking about the meeting in the Oval Office, a retweet about that, and the El Salvadorian president, the idea of just taking people from here and putting them into their prisons without any due process, talking about guns as well. And then there's a more recent post that he made, and this one is directly rebuking J.D. Vance. It links to an article, and it links to a comment from J.D. Vance, an interview that Vance did on Fox News, where he said there is a Christian concept that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens, and then after that, prioritize the rest of the world. A lot of the far left has completely inverted that. And the new Pope, Pope Leo XIV, retweeted the article and said, J.D. Vance is wrong. This is the title of the article. Jesus does not ask us to rank our love for others. Ambassador, I'll ask you, what do you make of that stuff?
You know, so let me just underscore that what he is saying is at the core of Catholic teaching, of Christian teaching, of the gospel. You know, the fundamental teaching of Jesus is to love our neighbors. Period. End of conversation. The neighbor is not to be reduced or judged because of documentation status, gender, sexual orientation, race. No. And so if he is going to do this and continue to do this, which I have no doubt now he'll have a megaphone to do this, this is where I think that also this kind of, I would say, the best of our American spirit is going to shine at the Vatican, which is not America first, but America cares. And so we have a leader who's going to now use the papacy to promote the message that we human beings are called to care, not to put down the other. Oh my gosh, I will be celebrating, you know, for a long time, you know, the fact that the Cardinals have elected someone who will continue the vision of Pope Francis. And hopefully, you know, we've talked about the areas that we need growth in, hopefully be able to grow in those areas so that this kind of what I would call humanization of one another can take place, and in fact, in terms of the areas where it's being reversed, can be turned back into some positive territory of acknowledgement. And so there I am, with him and three other professors last year. Yes.
From refinding some humility and some humanity as well. Don't go anywhere. Ambassador, please stay around for us. Chris, don't go anywhere. We're going to take a very short break. We are going to come back on the other side with more on the very first election of an American-born pope. We're back in 90 seconds.
Here's to getting better with age.